So when I got to school, it was a rude awakening. So they put me in special ed. And in those days in special ed, you were put out in a trailer in the back of the school. And you had to hold hands to go to lunch. You know, it's kind of embarrassing. So nobody got lost, you know what I mean? And so today that would definitely be discrimination under No Child Left Behind. So it's a totally different time. I'm just glad they didn't have a little short yellow bus. I'm glad I had the ride. I thank God to this day for that. So, when I got to 8th grade, I was put in the gifted and talented. I don't know how I made that, but I did. So I guess I grew. I learned how to read for one. That helped. So. And so everything just took off from there. So I repeated 1st grade. Now you know that. That stays in here. Okay. All right. In junior high, oh man. In junior high, I had a quote-unquote girlfriend, you know, type of thing. And even in 1st grade, you know, I had friends in 1st grade that liked girls. Can you believe that? In 1st grade, they liked girls. Wow. And so I pretended I liked girls because they liked girls. And I would go after the same girl. You know, we'd fight. You know, so. But I didn't even like girls. I didn't like girls even through high school. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I didn't like them even through high school. I thought they were annoying. But anyway. So in junior high, we didn't have text messaging. My parents didn't allow me to go on dates. They didn't allow me to do any of those things. So all I can do is talk on the phone. So I spent probably half of my junior high on the phone. Seriously, that's the only privilege that I had. And you couldn't have anybody at your house if your parents were home. That was the rule back in the day. I mean, mom, dad went home, mom went home. Nobody could be in your home. You got caught, you wish you were never born. You know. And so, anyway, so in junior high, we would write these notes and we just like walk by and just kind of pass the notes and keep on going. It's just weird. We didn't even talk to each other at school. Get home, talk for a couple of hours, but at school, just like pass a little note, read it, and that was the extent of the relationship. Unfortunately, some people are married to do that today. That's another story. Anyway, that was the extent of the relationship, and so it was just weird. So anyway, my 8th grade year, well, I'll get to the basketball thing. 1984, Michael Jordan came to the league. So I became a Michael Jordan fan instantly. And so the way I learned how to play basketball, initially my mom, my mom's awesome. She would take her hands and she would make a little basket like this. When she was folding clothes, or she'd take a laundry basket. And I would take the socks. Now I realize she was trying to give me help with the laundry. But anyway, I would take the socks and I would fold them in and I would, shoot hoops and stuff like that. Make them off her face and, I love that. That's for that spanking you gave me. So, I miss those days. But anyway, that's how I kind of got into it. Then, believe it or not, we had tons of trees in our yard. And I took the metal clothes hangers, and I took the little loop part that hangs on the rack, I straightened it out and bent it, and I found a little soft spot in the tree, and I pushed it in the tree. And I started just shooting whatever through rocks or whatever through there. I mean, we didn't have a basketball hoop, so I used my imagination. And when we used to play, we used to always imagine that we were a certain player in our mind. Call out their names and pretend we could play like them, even though we couldn't. And that's what we did. As I got older, another thing we used to do is take those little BMX bikes came out, the little dirt bikes, the stuff bike stuff came out. We retired the bike, we would take the rims of them and we would take all the spokes out of them, and we would find any piece of plywood. It didn't have to be square or rectangle; it could just be any shape. We didn't care. We would nail it to the tree with just nails, and we would take that bike rim and we would nail it to the tree, and we would just play basketball like that. We'd take a flat soccer ball or anything we get our hands on, and we would just play basketball. There'd be tree roots sticking out of the ground. We'd dribble around them, and we'd fall and trip over them. But that's how we played. It'd be grass, and we just pounded it into the dirt, and we made a basketball court, and that's how we played. Baseball, we would take a broomstick, tennis ball, play stick ball, and that's how we played. So we just made up games, and we had a lot of fun. I miss it. We had a lot of fun. Moving into the 8th grade, my 8th grade year, I was going to go stay with my grandma for the summer because she's a good cook. And I went to go stay with her, and my grandmother and my grandfather never went past the 8th grade. I think my grandma maybe went 6th, 7th grade, but she was very intelligent woman. You had something was wrong with you, she could fix you. Okay? Everything up next to death, she could fix you. And she had an elixir or a potion for something. It wasn't Robitussin either. She could do it right. And so I went to go live for her this summer, but I didn't know I was going to have to work. I said, she's going to let me sleep in, I'm going to have my time. mistaken. My grandmother, would, in the summertime, after she had retired, she would actually go into the fields and pick. They had these different types of peas she would pick in the field. She would pick. There were some peas that were up here, tall ones, the regular peas, and they had the little butterbean peas that were down to the ground. You had to bend over and get them. Well, I worked in the fields the whole entire summer. We would get up at like 5:30 in the morning, get in the car, and she never had a driver's license. So she always got somebody else to drive for her, like driving Miss Daisy. And she would get her food at different locations. So just to go get, a meal for a couple of days, we'd be driving all over town for half a day. Because she would go over here to get her bread, over here to get meat, and I mean, it was just crazy. So we get up and get in the car in the morning, we go out there, and we're working in the fields all day long. Sun up, sun down. I do this for the whole summer. Now, all my life, we would shop at yard sales. So I would wear my clothes would come from yard sales. And that's what I wear. We looked nice. My mom took care of us. Nobody would know our clothes came from yard sales. And I got shoes from Payless, before Payless was cool. And before Walmart was cool. They got nice clothes now, because see what they had when I was a kid. And that's where we shopped. And so, it wasn't until I was in 8th grade that I got my first pair of real nice shoes. They were about $50, $55. And that was a lot of money back then, because at that time, the most expensive pair of shoes were $55. The shoes before that, $20 to $25 were like, you had those shoes, you'd be considered rich. And then there was Michael Jordan, of course. And his shoes automatically in the 80s were costing over $100. And there were kids that were wearing those shoes. And we're like, that was like driving a Ferrari. Because our shoes were our cars, you know what I mean? We walked to school, so that was like having a Ferrari. So it was amazing, kids bought those shoes. So anyway, got my first pair of nice shoes after working all summer. So it was kind of nice. It was hard work, but I look back at it and I learned a lot from that. Going to my freshman year, I started having problems at home. And my stepdad, he was very abusive. Kind of reminded me of my father when I was little. And I had an aunt. She was the only one that graduated from college. She went to school for accounting. Was a CPA. She was working in Illinois for a while, and then got transferred to Minnesota. And was a CPA and a supervisor at a 3M corporation. She was making like 6 figures, big money. And was doing really well. And so some of the family members started to move to Minnesota. Well, my grandmother would go up there every summer. That's what she would do. She would go up to Minnesota, but she wouldn't fly. So she would take the bus and drive for like 2 days to get there. I did that one time. I said, never get on the bus again. So I flew. And so I went up there, and up there at 14 you could work. So I got a job at Burger King. Oh. So I said, I'll be here for a month. And so I had to remember the slogan, have it your way. So, and I made $3.25 an hour. That's what I made. Back in 1988 or 89, something like that. $3.25 an hour. So I worked there for about a month. In a month, I made like $120 or something like that. And of course, I saw that they took money out of my check, and I didn't know anything about that. I'm like, who is this taking money out of my check? I was mad. So I decided I was going to get something, clothes and stuff for school. Well, of course, I wanted the fancy shoes. So when I bought those, I had no more money left over. Clothes. So my clothes didn't look so good, but my shoes were bad. So I didn't care. You're a teenage boy, you just, don't care. I took a shower, that's all that matters. So, and that's the way I went. Well, when I was in industrial arts class, I made a little wood stick, and the intentions of that stick was to use it against my stepfather. Because he developed a drinking habit when he was in the military. So he would drink a lot more when he got in the military. And he was verbally abusive. Not so much physically, but there were times we had those physical moments. And so I wanted to be prepared for that. My brother and I and my little sister slept in one room. I never had my own room. Even now I don't have my own room because I'm married. So I never knew what it felt like to have my own room. So that's why if you don't clean your room, you don't deserve a room. I never had one. So I had to figure it out quick because my sister and my brother had this wet in the bed problem. And so I made a mistake of lying on the bottom of the bunk bed, and we had to make a switcheroo. But I can just go on about those stories. Then my brother had a snoring problem. Not just your ordinary one, but he can call 10,000 hogs out of heaven. And I would throw shoes at him. I would get so mad. Oh, man. So I didn't get much sleep. But he was my little brother. I loved him. We're about 11 years apart. He looked up to me. But I wanted to leave him home when I was about 14 years old. And this is where it gets a little bit deep. My father, I never really had a good relationship with him. I only saw him a few times after that. And so I decided when I went for the summer, I came back, it was a new culture for me. I get there, they got like Mongolian people, they got Chinese people, they have, you know, all kinds of people I've never seen before. Because I grew up in a little town, Alabama, you know. I'm like, man, where all these people come from? And they're talking to each other. So I'm like having a heart attack. Like, they're talking to each other? I wasn't used to that. So I loved it. I loved it. So I came back and went to school, and I mean, I just didn't like the environment I was in. There was a lot of fights and stuff like that. And I was getting straight A's. I mean, the work was just really easy for me getting straight A's. So when I had the altercation with my stepdad, I determined I was just going to leave. I was going to leave, and I called my aunt up and said, can I come stay with you? So she sent for me a plane ticket, and it was the first time I flew, and I was scared to death. Got on the plane at the age of 14, flew up to Minnesota, maybe 14 or 15, I don't remember. And I got there my freshman year and started school. I was the only black person in my freshman class. It was an eye-opener for me. And everybody was jipper and excited, you know, oh, how you doing? You know, so I'm like, okay, I'm not used to this. And so my best friend was a white guy. And let me tell you, I had a lot of fun with him. He took me hunting. He took me fishing. We jumped off cliffs. Stuff I tell you I never do, I did it. And we would go play basketball in the little 8-foot hoops, and I would slam dunk it. And, you know, we had a lot of fun, just a lot of fun. His parents, you know, I was like the family pet because, like, all my white friends, they looked at me like, oh, he's black. He would touch me, you know. Oh, yeah. And they were like a little family pet. And they would treat me better than they would treat their own kids, you know. So it was amazing. I loved it. You better not mess with him. I loved it. And so there were some privileges, you know. So we get up there, and I have two aunts up there. One of my aunts actually had a son when she was a 17-year-old in high school. So by that time, she was probably in her mid-20s. So she moved up there, and she was living with her son in an apartment, and she had a boyfriend there. And so I actually wound up living with them my first year. And so things were tight financially. We lived in a little small apartment. Things were very tight financially. And then a year later, he wound up getting a job in Atlanta. So we moved to the city of Atlanta. I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta, but it's huge. The airport alone is as big as this whole city. I mean, it's huge. Whoa. And I mean, you have to take a subway train just to get around the airport. So it's a huge city. So anyway, I get to Atlanta, and when I get there, he had a contract job, and he had already lost his job by the time we got there. So we got evicted out of our condo after about 2 months of being there, and I was instantly homeless. My aunt decided she was going to go back to Minnesota. I decided I wanted to stay. So at 15 years old, I get 2 jobs. I take the buses to school. I had a great bus system. I took the bus to school, was an AB honor roll student, and played on the basketball team and got MVP of the basketball team that year. I got my own apartment. I paid my own rent at the age of 16. I did all that whole entire year. Got in trouble one time when the ISS was in a little cubicle. We couldn't even breathe. They would jump on us. And I said, I'll never come back here again. I was bored out of my mind. I feel like I was in there for 2 years. Never got in trouble again. I wore a sweatsuit. It wasn't like the fancy one. It was like the cotton sweatpants and sweatshirt. That's what I wore every day to school. I didn't have money to buy clothes. And that's the way I went to school every day. And so I decided at the end of the year that I would, you know, try to go back home. So I went back home. Things didn't work out. So I went back to Minnesota. But this time I moved in with my other aunt. And so I moved in with her. She was the one that had the CPA. She had 3 kids of her own. So I was pretty much neglected. I still had to work because no one could provide for me. And I wound up buying my first car when I was a junior in high school. It was, you want to guess how much I paid for it? I paid $75 for it. How would you like that, Steve? Your car $75? Good deal, isn't it? Now, once one setback, it didn't look so pretty. But I was rolling, amen. I was rolling. And I just want to get the point. It just felt good to be independent. You get a car, you can go.
What kind of car it was?
They don't even make it no more. It was called, you can look it up on the internet if you want to, but it's called the Plymouth Horizon is what it's called. Plymouth Horizon or Horizon, whatever you want to call it. The tires on it was about that thick, and I barely fitted it. It was a 5-speed manual transmission, and I had to shift the clutch with my little toe because I could fit on there, so a little tiny car. Didn't have a radio, so it just made a humming noise. Almost put me to sleep a few times. I was meditating while driving. So. But I was rolling, you know. And you want to know how I learned how to drive a 5-speed? Just by watching other people sitting in the passenger seat and just watching them. And I just picked it up, started driving. So I learned a lot of things that way. A lot of times nowadays, you guys don't pay attention to nothing. There's a lot of blessings that come your way if you just pay attention and listen. A lot of free lessons in life if you only just pay attention. So anyway, I drove that car for about a year. One day it did break down on me, and back in those days, y'all don't know anything about engine, but they used to have the carburetor, and the carburetor have these little chokes. When you press on the gas, a little thing do like this. Now y'all have fuel injected, you don't know anything about this. But anyway, it broke. So I went in my bag, pulled out a paper clip and fixed it, and kept driving. True story. So anyway, let me get moving because I don't want to lose out on what I really want to get to. But anyway, as I went through, I didn't get a chance to play varsity basketball until my senior year. You said, whoa. And what happened is we had about a lot of seniors that year on the team. And these guys had been playing together their whole lives. And I was like the outside guy coming in from other places. And then I had left my sophomore year and came back, so it made it even worse. And so I didn't get a chance to play. Even though I was a really good basketball player, for some reason I didn't make it. I look back at that and I see God in it now, but at the time I didn't understand that. My senior year, we got a new coach that had coached college basketball and decided he wanted to come back and play high school basketball. And he was good. I was a starter. I was one of the best players in the state. That summer, I went and worked my tail off. I worked hard. I was a league scorer, rebounder in a couple of leagues, one of the Nike leagues there, and got my name out there. And I did all of this without any support. My family came to my game to watch me play this many times, my whole entire career. In college, this many times. Everything I did was self-motivated and self-driven. My little brother and my sister never graduated from high school. My mother just barely has a high school, ladies. My little brother just has my mother just has a high school education. That's it. My aunt was the only one in our family, and I had an uncle that went to college. That was it. So I had nobody to drive me, nobody to push me, no one to encourage me. There was times where it was hard. There were times where I didn't know what I was going to eat. It was very difficult. My parents never sent me money. Whatever I made on my job is what I had. If I didn't have it, I didn't have it. Whatever the school served, that's what I had to eat. I didn't have any options. Now, I'm not saying my family completely neglected me, but there was only so much they could do. They were my extended family. I was just thankful to have a place to lay my head. When I lived with my aunt, I slept on the basement on the floor. I had no bed. I did that for 2 years. I couldn't have friends over. I don't even know what it's like to have friends over because I didn't have a place for my friends. I take a lot for granted. A lot for granted. I graduated from high school, and the senior year, I had a really good year. I got recruited to play at Iowa State. I forget who was the coach there that year. I think Fred Horberg was there I think year before me or after me or something like that. And my high school coach was a college coach. He said, you know what you should do? He said, I think you should go play at a junior college, a 2-year school, and then we'll transfer you to Iowa State. So I took his advice. I mean, he was a college coach. So I went to a little junior college in Waldorf, Iowa, which was a little town of 500 students, and everybody was farmers. So I get to the other obscure place, and I get there, but the food was amazing, because everything was catered. There's only 500 students, everything's catered. Amazing. Decided I was going to go into science and be a biology major, and so I got a scholarship to play there. My intention was to go there 2 years and then transfer. I got there, and my high school coach's friend was no longer there. So there's this little guy about this tall who was a soccer coach. They moved him over to the basketball coach. I'm like, man, who are you? You know?